everyone. Happy summer.
Summer's over.
I didn't get a chance to say hello to everybody that walked in. Pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10-4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by advertising such notice in the Home News Tribune, Asbury Park Press, Board Office, the schools on Cable Vision Channel 118, Verizon Fios Channel 24, and by filing such notice with the Township Clerk. Meeting is scheduled for this evening, Tuesday, August 12th, 2014. The Board will take formal action on payment of bills. And other items tonight.
And other items.
And other items as listed. Mr. Merrill?
The Old Bridge Township Board of Education acknowledges that the law of this state establishes that members of the public, including members of the board, have the right to record public board meetings using audio or video recording devices, provided that the act of recording does not interfere with the business of the public board meeting. Therefore, the board makes it known that any such recording is to be considered a private recording of the individual and in no manner represents the official record of this board. The board therefore takes no responsibility for such private recording and completely disavows any future use.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Roll call, please.
Porcelli? Here. DePrima?
Here.
Dunn?
Here.
Ottman?
Here.
Monaghan?
Here.
Singh?
Here.
Chirikowski?
Here.
Weber? Andriani?
Here.
Quorum exists.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, pledge allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just one? Okay. Mr. Mayor would like to tell us about an administrative correction.
There was one administrative change to tonight's agenda, action item only. To the board members, the agenda in your packet reflects the administrative change and it's highlighted in yellow since it's under certificated staff. And to members of the public, there's one administrative change affecting one resolution under certificated personnel. The schedule of that change is together with all the agendas at the table.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we go on, I was talking to a few of the board members earlier. Gwen Thornton from New Jersey School Boards has contacted me again. There are still some outstanding evaluations. There are two that need to be done. One is superintendent's evaluation and the other one is the board's self-evaluation. There are some people on the board that have conflicted status, but they can still do the self-evaluation for the board. So if those people could complete that, that would be great. Apparently there's a small number of that have been completed, and she wants to get that information back as soon as possible. So if you all could do that, I would appreciate it. Okay, thank you. All right, I need approval of the minutes. Have somebody make a motion?
No, we don't need that.
I don't need that today. We're not doing that
Kathy
here.
mentioned.
Okay. Will there be recognition? First,
The first thing I want to say is that I think we need to add, since our last meeting, I think Joe Scherer passed away during that time. He was a air conditioning and refrigeration mechanic in the district for quite a few years. He retired this past 2013-14 school year and subsequently passed away over the summer, so I think that needs to be added. It's in here because his replacement is Joseph. S-H-A-R-A-R.
will we have a new student person available? Probably not for the August one. Does anybody know?
I'll reach out to the building principal to see if
Somebody's coming?
someone will be coming.
Okay.
I do have just information I wanted to provide tonight under superintendent's report. It won't be what we'll provide you with at the meeting, but it's really applicable to the board, just to advise the board about the middle stage process. It's been 7+ years since we've gone to Middle States. It does have to do with some of our scheduling this year. So I've asked that our 2 Middle States co-chairs from the high school be here tonight. We have Susan and Allison. Both want to take a few moments to introduce the board. With many board members here. How many board members have been through the Middle States process? So
5 times.
Ladies, you won't get on the camera that way. I'll move over, why don't you come up here?
Okay.
Sure. In the chair or this? Okay, I'll just move this over.
You said, oh, sure.
Yeah, it's fine. No, cheers, cheers. No, no, take this. I'll get you one.
Yeah, what you want to say?
Okay. You get this.
Yes, I can read all the entry.
ladies, you ready?
Yes, we're ready.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Susan Chisakis, this is Allison Tuckman. We are the co-internal coordinators at Aldridge High School for Middle States. And it's been 7 years since we had a visit for reaccreditation. Middle States does come every 3 years to evaluate the practices of the school to see if we're putting into place what we say we have on paper. So they'll spend with us, there'll be 5 members of the visiting team. They will spend the duration of time at the high school and all facilities here on the plant. So they will speak with a member of the board, they'll speak with our principal, they'll speak with Mr. Cittadino, with Ms. Coker, as well as Mr. Sasso, Mr. Mazurek, all of our faculty, our coaches, our custodial staff, our support staff, students, parents, etc. So we do have a planning team that consists of 16 members of the high school, including ourselves as well as administration. We've met frequently with Mr. Cittadino to keep him abreast of what's been going on in districts. And this year we'll meet with our planning team probably 5 or 6 times throughout the year. Allison and I meet 4 times a week, 2 periods, sometimes it goes after school on. We do not get paid for this position, this is completely voluntary. So we do that. However, we are compensated in the school year, we plan 5 days, a maximum, during the summer. We compile the report, the statistics, an overall general, just genre of what we've done, where we're going. And then, of course, with approval by the board, by you, we are granted 5 days during the school year for us to take. So we just wanted to take not much of your time, but about 5 or 10 minutes. We just have something on what Middle States is, how it benefits our students, because colleges, universities look at that. It helps our students when they're going, when they're applying, they understand what we do. And of course, Middle States provides for us, as well as the entire community, accommodations and recommendations how we could become better. Even though we know we already are doing a great job, we could always use a little bit of help.
So the Middle States accreditation process, first, every college and university in the nation is accredited by Middle States. It is a requirement by law. If your college or university loses their accreditation for any reason, your diploma can become invalid. So it is extremely important to achieve accreditation. It is not a requirement, though it is looked favorably upon you if you do, as a high school, receive accreditation. We did receive accreditation from Middle States now 7 years ago, which is hard to imagine. I've been involved with the process 7 years, and Susan has been involved for 6 as she's been here. A profile of a Middle States accredited institution, and this is directly from the Middle States website. We adhere to their standards, which are extremely stringent and very, very thorough. We use missions and beliefs and goals in our day-to-day decision-making, operate in the public interest in according with ethical practice, accept responsibilities for the level of performance of its students, and remain committed to continuously improving in student learning. And that's really what this process is about. It gives us a chance, Middle States does, to allow us to step back for a moment, especially being a large institution. It's very difficult in the day-to-day practice to take a moment and say, we are doing great things here, what can we do to improve ourselves? And that's what this process is all about. So we are currently undergoing a required self-study process. We started this process, Susan and I met with our planning team in January. We started the process with them, reviewing our district mission statement, reviewing the high school mission statement and motto, going through the Middle States standards and their recommendations and seeing if there were any improvements we can make on that. We've given our suggestions to Mr. Cittadino. Obviously, they're just suggestions, but we did discuss it amongst our planning team. In order to maintain our accreditation, we have to set forth goals to improve ourselves as a school. And those goals, if approved by Middle States, which we will be writing up and submitting in September for approval, if they are approved, we take the next 7 years to continually try to obtain those goals and objectives. The last time we did this, we went through this process, we set 5 goals. The goals are based upon surveys that our faculty has participated in taking. Our student body took them as well. We have them open to parents, so parent suggestions, and it's on the high school website. We invite everyone here on the board, anybody else who is here who has not taken the site, the link is on the high school website. If you would, take a moment. It only takes about 10 minutes to complete the survey. It's very helpful to us when taking all the data, putting it all together, and trying to come up with areas in need of improvement. Some of the examples of some of the things that we developed as a result of the last time we went through this process were the school mission statement. The high school as a whole, I believe, did not have its own mission statement. It only had the district-wide mission statement, so the school mission statement came from Middle States. Our Battle of the Classes was a suggestion and action as part of the Middle States. The Knights of the Silver Bleachers, the student pep squad organization, came from a Middle States suggestion. And we also made changes in the grading policy that was a result of that as well. As Susan mentioned, we are going to be evaluated this year, this school year. Our evaluation has been set for April 13th through the 16th. And we will be visited by 5 team members. We actually just got confirmation of that yesterday. They have assigned us our point person, and we will be in touch with them as soon as the school year starts. That point person is going to come in and do a pre-evaluation with us sometime in the fall, and then we'll be joined by 4 other teachers who volunteered their time from around the region. And they will come and they will spend 4 days with us. And at the end of that 4 days, they will determine whether or not we are recommended for accreditation to Middle States. They make the final determination in December of 2015. The approximate cost of accreditation. We are responsible for the visiting team's accommodations when they arrive. I was a member of a visiting team recently. It was October of this past school year. I went up to James Caldwell High School in West Caldwell, New Jersey, and I was part of their evaluation team. We are responsible to put them up their lodging accommodations, meals, and mileage reimbursement for when they are here and they're traveling to and from. Our chairperson it appears is from Pennsylvania, so they'll be coming in from Pennsylvania. But we wanted to make everybody aware that, you know, there's going to be a period of time where we are going to need some additional funds to fulfill this, as well as the preparation of the self-study document, which is about a 200-page document, which Susan and I have been working on all summer, which accumulates a massive amount of statistics and information for the Middle States evaluation team when they arrive. We've also asked for certain dates from Mr. Cittadino for staff in service on Middle States. They will talk to everyone when they come. There is nobody that they will not approach. There is nobody that they will not ask to speak with. That is from the cafeteria moms to the head custodian to Mr. Cittadino. So they will ask to speak to everyone, and we want to make sure everybody is well informed. So we have many activities planned for our faculty as well, starting in September. Middle States website is www.msa-cess.org. I'll say that again. www.msa-cess.org.
There you go. It works.
Feel free to log onto their website to see any additional information that you may want about the Middle States process, what it is. You can search any of the schools and find out what schools have been accredited. We have a page on there as well for Old Bridge High School. And we invite anybody who would like to become a part of the process or to come in. Obviously we'll have meeting dates. We will let everyone know about them if you'd like to come in and see the process, see what goes on at our planning team meetings. We have added a few members, and our planning team is quite diverse. We tried to make sure we had a representative from at least every department in the school, guidance and so on, so, as well as students.
3 students.
Yes, one who's videotaping
who's
in the
there.
back. So, if anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
You said every 3 years, but it's been 7?
It's been 7, but they come back every 3 years just to do a reaccreditation.
Like a
Just a
midterm
mid-year
review.
review, just to see how are you doing, are you still continuing your practices, have you changed anything? Because sometimes in 7 years, you have to alter what you originally wrote. Just due to funding or just activities. We've had a big change in administration in the high school, so things like that, philosophies.
Also, you said if a college loses their accreditation, that can invalidate it with a grade. What if a high school loses their accreditation?
It's not a requirement for high schools. What it is though, when students apply to college, for example, our valedictorian who's going to Harvard, that's a pretty big deal. When he submits his application in, if the school immediately sees that they are Middle States accredited, it kind of gives them a level of confidence knowing that they're coming from a school that has met a certain criteria, because the Middle States standard is very, very high. So across the board, it gives everybody kind of a universal check mark, so to speak.
I have a question. The 200-page copy, and I know that it's big. Are they asking for hard copies?
They're asking for digital copies, but we have to have hard copies on hand for them as well. We haven't reached
Does that have to go out to a publisher? Does that have to go out to somebody?
No.
We can do that in-house?
We can do that in-house.
In-house.
Mhm. Yes. Any questions?
Do you anticipate any problem, or have you seen, I think we have a unique situation here in that we have one high school, two campuses, but one is called the Ellen McDermott Grade 9 Center, and there's an individual called principal there, but the state only recognizes one principal. Is that going to be an issue for the Middle States?
I don't believe so,
We did call, just to share with them that, again, we have 2 facilities, even though it's one high school with a separate name, but it will be granted, Old Bridge High School and Ellen McDermott Grade 9 Center will be included. So they won't be excluded out of the Middle States process, they will still be interviewed, because that was a big question, what we had going back 2 years ago, will it be 2 school numbers? Because there are 2 principals, but it will be accredited from 9th through 12th grade.
But one principal will be recognized?
No,
They'll-
both of
will
their
be
names are on the
put
documents.
documents.
How many other school districts in New Jersey are middle schools accredited?
Almost all.
All of them. So it's necessary to stay on.
Yeah.
To stay
Do you feel confident that we are?
Yes.
Yeah, we do, we do. And I think the faculty does as well. Because based on the survey results from when they took the survey back in March, and now it's open for the parents or anyone in the community to take this, the students, just the criteria that they see, what's going on in the school, what they feel, it's an honest, anonymous survey. So it's nice when you get that, you get true thoughts. This is where we need to improve, this is what's lacking, and it's something that I think we're all aware of.
Yes, I think that there were very clear-cut areas and that everybody the consensus seemed to be that we needed improvement in. And I think the overall feeling, however, was from 7 years ago to now, those faculty who were involved 7 years ago, to now, have seen drastic improvement to the point where last time we had 5 goals. This time we'll only have 4.
What criteria do they look at within a high school so that we can make that determination whether we get the designation? Is it based upon our advanced courses? Is it based upon a grade point average? What's the criteria that makes you accredited?
There are 12 standards that Middle States puts forward, and they range from everything from facilities to administration to finances, across the board, every single category you can imagine is basically covered there. Student life and activities and academics and so on and so forth. This document that we put together is broken down into those 12 areas, and if you go online to the school website and take the survey, you'll see that the survey is also broken down into those 12 areas, the standards. So they come in and they will look at our self-study that we've completed, which is, the report is based on those, and they will evaluate each section and the evidence that we provide to them, saying that we are, our facilities plan, or we, what are our long-range goals for facilities and things like that. We provide the plan to them. They check that we are indeed following through with some facilities plan. That's just an example. So that's the determination. It's the check in every category that we are meeting their criteria.
So there's 12 disciplines or 12 areas that they look into, and is one of those areas faculty?
Yes.
And do they judge based upon advanced degrees, whether or not that plays into the mix?
No.
No, so if you have more staff members with a BA instead of a master's or a doctorate, that doesn't play into the decision?
No. They do ask for that information though, that
They
is part
do.
of our report.
They do, yes.
But
There's no sense of
That
them
doesn't
utilizing
exist.
that to judge that
No.
discipline or that criteria?
no.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, the reason I wanted them to share that information with you, and because of their lengthy process with the Middle States accreditation,
Thank you.
they obviously know more than I could possibly explain, is that there is a reliance on the board and central administration cooperation this year, especially. One is the fiscal component of it, that we have to fund and support the visiting team coming here. And as part of the decision-making process to have Allison go out last year to be on the visiting team so she can get a feedback as to what we're looking for this year. Like when she did that, again, her lodging was taken care of and her meals, and we're gonna have to also do that as well. And the other piece of it is looking at the way we deliver our professional development this year, our PLC days. Historically, in the past few years, the PLC days have only been limited to the elementary schools, where there's an early dismissal for elementary students, but a full day for staff. What I'm proposing this year is that we extend that through the high school for various reasons, but by not adding any early dismissal days to our calendar. Because of our testing format, the way we're changing our testing format, we've elected to have the park administered in 2 sessions throughout the course of the day. Historically, in both middle school and high school, when we've had standardized testing, it was a early dismissal day for students and full day for staff. But because of the need to get the park done in a shorter window of time with all the testing we have to do, we're going to have run double sessions of testing. So we'll eliminate those 4 days that were normally early dismissal days for testing. And I'm going to put them in place into the PLC days because we need that time to prepare the staff, one at the high school, as the Middle States recommends and dictates that there's professional development for the staff prior to the process in April when the visitations take place. So to have that time available for them at for the PLC days that ties into elementary, and also what we're looking at with the Achieve New Jersey now, the revolution of the SGOs and SGPs to have more professional development. They've just, again, modified the professional development requirements for this in July for the state of New Jersey, and requiring more professional development so we can tie it into our middle school and our high school as what we've been doing in the elementary school. So, and some of the parents that I've spoken to truly appreciate that, because historically, like I said in the past, we've had the early dismissal for elementary students, but for working parents who rely on the older children to come home and take care of those kids, they weren't there. So now the high school and the middle school will be dismissed first, and then the elementary, and it would help those parents who do not need to take the day off for the PLC days.
I guess that we're going to move into hearing of residents. on agenda items? Is there anyone out there that would like to comment on anything that's on agenda? No? All right, thank you. Policy?
Donna, there were two policies, policy 8507 and 8508. I know this is only going to be the first reading, I don't know if we're going to have any other policy readings, but there were options at the end of those policies. Like an option whether to include certain schools or every school, and neither was checked. So, it's regarding the serving options for breakfast and lunch. So I just wanted to know before we vote on them in September, I'd like to see the option.
There's 7 in here.
Can I just say one thing? Was this brought up at the policy meeting and what option to?
We didn't discuss the policy meeting where the districts, or where the board members wanted to go. As far as this, the theory behind offer versus serve is to make your food service more efficient. So if you are providing the training and the information at every school, certainly you can check the second box that it will be implemented at every building. What you may want to do is revise that last sentence, say every building, every applicable building. Because I don't know what your food service, your breakfast service protocols are with as many buildings as you have, whether it's available in every building.
The only thing I would suggest, and maybe Kathy can weigh in on this also, is this gives students the option to not accept certain foods.
Correct.
I'm not sure if it's appropriate at the elementary level to have students that are in the second grade telling matrons that I don't want this. It should just basically be what they're serving. In the high school, maybe it's completely different, maybe more effective in the high school. So I would suggest that if we were going to do this policy, we should seriously consider just doing it at the high school level and exempt the elementary and middle school.
I think it depends on how many options you're talking about. Two choices, and you say, do you want this or do you want this? They'll pick one, but if you're saying, do you want this with this, this, and this? You'll have kids lined up there for
Right, I think
entirely
implementation
too long.
is impossible for this, except at the high school level. For the younger kids, I think it's impossible. It's actually required for the high school level for lunch.
Yeah.
So I think we have to do it there, but for all the other schools, I would suggest that we not do this.
It's wide open, it is at the pleasure of the board upon recommendation of the administration. So
I will also review this with Michelle Feliciano to see how this can be, if it's practical to have this at the lower levels for the next week.
Let's all bring it up, because I don't think you were at the policy meeting, I'm not sure.
And then we can talk about it at the agenda meeting in September, because you've got a long time before action on this.
So the layman's terms from a parent of 4 young children is that the elementary school students would go through, I'll take my chocolate milk, low fat, I'll take my French toast sticks, you want an apple? No. So, you know,
It's not even that easy. When you read it, you're allowed to take 3 of the 4 items.
You can decline one.
You can decline one, so
Right.
which one can you decline?
the apple's always gonna be declined.
Right.
And you may not be able to decline the apple, because you need to take fruit.
But are you just talking about the breakfast, or are you talking about breakfast and the lunch?
Right, two separate
Breakfast
policies.
It does make it very complicated. In the lunch line, when you're talking about 25 minutes and a number of kids, and, you know, I just,
Students, I don't think it's
too many choices, and there's, you know, it holds up the line, and then the next person can get everybody.
Go for September.
And between now and then, we'll have a policy meeting.
I got a question on P7440, Superior Schools. I know that we're delineating that we have access control, and that's going to be means of controlling access into schools. Security of school premises, I think we should also include that we do have video surveillance, and the board authorizes the use of that equipment in the premises, and to be observed by authorized individuals only.
Do
theoretically,
you want to
Video.
expand that 1, 2, 3, that fourth paragraph, that
I
the
believe
records and funds shall be kept
Right.
under lock and key?
I believe so. We need to be able to put video, because video becomes the possession of the district, and unauthorized access and viewing of the video can be a problem for litigation purposes. And I'm sure Chris can go into greater detail on that, because we have to be very careful on who sees that video and how it gets out. So I would like to have a policy on how we handle school surveillance video and all that digital data.
Well, that paragraph that I mentioned is just for collecting money, so that's not here in the
Well, that's up to the committee to determine.
It would be.
And
Additional
or,
paragraph.
yeah.
And I think there is a Strauss policy already.
They have an existing policy about surveillance and monitoring of school premises. So, one way or another, we'll check.
Right, it's part of the security of schools, and surveillance is a big part of it, so we should make reference to it here to view, policy 7441 for additional information. Correctly reporting it if that's the case.
Anybody else? Curriculum?
Just on that, because as we discussed that, the access that we have, want to have a, I guess, an inclusive system within the OBPD.
That was in here too.
Well, my concern is we don't want them to have to request access. Because if there's something going on in a school and they're using the cameras at the time of the crisis, one of them say, well, you can't get in, they have to get in touch with someone, obviously, have access to the cameras.
To some degree, it states it in here, the board directs close cooperation with district officials, with law enforcement officers, firefighters, the sheriff's office.
Between that and the uniform memorandum of
Yeah.
agreement, they have open access as it is, so there would be no additional hurdle for them to go over to get access. And you couldn't preclude them in.
Exactly, well, I thought that was kind of the direction the conversation was going, so I wanted to make sure we weren't going there.
No, and it says maintenance of facilities, because that's all district facilities. I mean, it just says facilities, so, we were talking in the last meeting, about something else. We consider that a facility, but that's not a hard school facility. So is that something that needs to be,
You can explore it more than that.
Chris was not at that meeting, places that aren't exactly school buildings, that are facilities, but not ones that have students in it.
Well, maintenance of facilities would be
Can you say
inclusive.
grounds, or facilities will include the grounds, buildings and grounds, so we go, okay.
If we said school buildings or elementary, middle, and high schools, that would be more restrictive. Facilities is intended to be broad.
Just make a check. Thank you. All right. Curriculum goes to the end of page 6. Anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, quick question. I see that we have a good number of certificated staff going to Washington DC for the 21st National Forum in Character Education. And I just have a question. I noticed that Dr. Hoka is going for 3 days and her expense is only $500, and why are others going for 3 days and theirs at 15? So is it just a typo, or does she get special?
We actually changed the amount for mine because I'm going down just for 1 day, so we did not change the date. The date then is incorrect. The amount is correct because I won't be there for the entire conference, but I'm going for the recognition piece. So it should be 11/2. And I'm sorry, the same thing for Courtney Lowry. She's going down, I'm not sure if she's going down, actually, I think it's 11/1 to 11/2. So hers should say the same thing, but I'll double check that. We need to be there on Saturday, which I think is the 1st.
Do you have any other questions, George? Can I have that?
Saturday.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
You got it.
Right, and
My question, while we're on the character ed, Washington Conference. I think it's very commendable to go there, and I know that, as part of the accountability regs, the superintendent has approved, and there's a good rationale provided that he's approved it. I just question the fact that in the elementary schools, Halloween is such an important holiday, sometimes even more important than Christmas. And for the elementary school principals, a lot of them, and their counselors, not so much the counselors, but the principals, to be out of their school for the Halloween celebration, the parade, I just question the timing of it. And I know it's not you that set the time, but it's just something that I question. And,
Well, it doesn't preclude them from having the celebration the day before, before they leave and so forth, and, you know, knowing that that's happening. We couldn't do anything about
the
the
day
timing.
before they'll be gone, the 30th. Well, I guess they can have it another
Right, the day
day, is
before
what
they
you're
leave,
saying.
right.
Do they have to be, excuse me, is the 30th a travel day, or is that the day they need to be there?
Well, the conference is several days, I believe it's 3 days, the final day, that's Saturday, and that's when the ceremony is, and they're presenting at the conference as part, many of these teams are presenting, at least whether it's the counselor and the principal together, or they have different designated times. I know, I don't know their individual times. I know Mrs. Lowry had said that hers is Saturday, so she's presenting in the morning on Saturday, she's driving down there then, and I know the others as well. They have pieces on specific days. It is not good timing, and you would think that, you know, they're dealing with everybody coming from education in schools, that, you know, timing just, it's not the best.
We have ESP
And my other question is on the conference that's in Las Vegas. Could you please, and I've nothing against the person, you know, I just question anything that's, you know, how it can help an Old Bridge school to go to Las Vegas, but I'm sure you've gotten the rationale. Can you just please, how is that feedback from that conference, how is that going to, you know, benefit the educational programs here in our district?
Donna, you received that feedback to my company?
Yes, Mrs. Keeler serves on the college board. She's been serving on that board for a number of years, and she does presentations at the college board conferences, and, you know, she's been very well recognized by College Board for her contributions to the
And she is presenting this year.
Yeah, she is presenting.
So the College Board, which also helps recognize the AP and everything else. So it benefits the district in that way, that we have a sitting member of the College Board on our facility, and that does professional development there.
And we've been recognized by the College Board last year for the increase in the number of our AP courses and the achievement of our students.
Does the location rotate every year? Is it always in
Yes.
Las Vegas?
Yes,
Yes.
no.
Oh, so it just happens that.
It just happens to be the last, you know, I mean, there always seems to be nice locations, I'm not gonna lie to you, they're not going to, I don't want to put down, you know, they're not going to Pittsburgh. Last year I think it was San Diego, this year is, Las Vegas. And we also received another, the visiting teacher that we have through the Mandarin program, that is from the College Board as well.
You ever find
Funding
out?
that. Yes, we did. At a very reasonable rate.
Also under curriculum, we have the establishment, I think, six new classes and the elimination of 3 self-contained classes. I know that this is an evolving thing that you develop as you get enrollments and needs. Does it require hiring new staff?
No, all the classes that have been either added or taken away have allowed us to maintain the staff that we have. So we have not added any additional paraprofessionals nor teachers. You know, I know that over the course of the last 2 years, it's come up to try and alleviate additional staff, and you know, we have tried to do that to take our staff that we have and put them in appropriate places. So no, there's no additional staff related to any of these positions.
So it's adapting the service that our students need with what we have by creating these new classes and eliminating
Athletics, agenda item number 1 only, we need to vote on that because these are, fall sports, so we need to get this vote in place. So,
Mongan will move.
thank you,
Dunn will
Ms.
second.
Mongan. Okay, Mr. Dunn, any discussions? No discussion, Mr. Mara, roll call please.
Porcelli?
Yes.
DePrima?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes.
Hartman?
Yes.
Langen?
Yes.
Singh?
Yes.
Silikowski?
Yes.
Andriani?
Yes.
Resolution number 1 passes.
Thank you very much. Okay, any, questions or discussion, 2, 1, 3, A through double B? The ones at the bottom, they have,
If they, we're hoping that by the time, our next meeting will be in Main Street.
We've had some.
But some of them, but again, if, we'll pull them if they doesn't get there, because some of them are winter positions that are necessary.
If you recall last year, once the job is posted, we automatically are putting it on the agenda. And we made it on our office call, it public, and then we'll pull anything off that's not filled. But
That's to help us
just
track
to
it.
pla- Right, to track it and help us place it, so you'll see blanks on the agenda session, but then hopefully they'll be filled in, otherwise they'll be removed.
no questions? All right, moving on to finance. We need a, we need to take a look, we need a resolution for a vote on numbers 1 and 2.
Just one question. Chris, do we have to vote on number 1 since that was already authorized on June 17th?
No, you don't need to vote on that, but since it's an acknowledgement, you might as well package it in with the other votes since you're sunshine to do that.
Does anybody have any questions on the votes?
I do.
Okay, Ms. Mullin?
Are you going to take a motion first and a second before
Um,
we separate and question?
I guess that would be the right thing to do. Thank you, Ms. Mullin. So would you like to make a motion for this? Thank you. Ms. Mullin? Mr. Roselli will, okay. Ms. Mullin, your question, just start with you.
Okay, I just, based on what Mr. Mara just said, first motion represents, bills that were paid on July 16th, check were issued and mailed out because the board passed a resolution in June authorizing prepayment because there was no July meeting. Is that correct? I'm just confirming.
That's correct.
And then the bill list of August, those checks won't be issued until tomorrow. After the board votes on it tonight, is that correct? Okay, and my question is on future bill list, at page 2 of 6, the total of which is $795,574.09. This is to the Hynella Board of Education for contracted custodial services based on the fact that this contract started in July 1, based on the board's vote at the May agenda meeting to award it to Hynella because the board had rejected the bids that were performed in March because it came in over budget. At that May meeting, I did vote no on awarding this based on concerns of the bid process. Since that time, I have spoken to Joe, Mr. Mara about it, and the bid that Mr. Giambri said was placed in the Central Record of Medford, which is a weekly paper which is the basis for this award in May, is that Hynella would receive sealed bids for joint purchasing items available Tuesday, April 15th and opened and read May 2nd. There was one respondent to that bid. Nowhere does it say contracted custodial services. Only one vendor bid, and that was ABM. Contract was for $2.6 million before payment of overtime. it is legal for this non-operating school district cooperative to do their bids this way per Mr. Barton. I did check that. I voted no on this, and, I will be voting, I will continue to vote no. The other item I wanna bring up is that on the attorney bill for June, there were 6 references to either, respond to bid award objections, bid award, challenges, and New Jersey Department of Education inquiries on the custodial bid process. That is just a statement of fact. Also, this bill list represents payments that were made for July cleaning services that were issued in June, prior to the month being over. We were told as a board that we would not be paying until we were sure every building was clean. And why we're paying in advance when we never paid all clean in advance? This is just a statement of fact. It's done, it's paid, and why we're not paying ABM, why we're paying Hynella. I guess it's because they're a non-operating school district, and maybe it's the term of their shared service agreement, which I did not vote for. But in good conscience, I cannot support this, and I just felt that it was important that the board and the public hear the reasons for mine, which will be a vote of no when these are paid. When it was awarded in May, there were 7 board members present, 6 voted yes, and I voted no.
Any other discussion about that? Does anyone else have any questions about Ms. Mungum's questions, statements?
I'd like to just get some clarification, whether it's going to be from Joe or from Chris. Is it common practice for us to pay through a third party for our custodial services?
It's not unusual to do that in a shared services context. However, Joe and I have had some discussions, and you're going to be changing your payment protocols. Do you want to talk about that, Joe?
Well, we
To
discussed,
answer the first question, yeah, it's typical to do that, like in the shared services arrangement.
and when we pay EIRC, it's a similar situation. We're paying them for whatever services they provide for us. We have discussed possibly making an agreement with Hynella to pay a certain portion to Hynella and also the balance to ABM. But in terms of where that is now, we haven't really moved on it yet. In response to Mrs. Mungum's comment that we would not be paying until the cleaning was done, the actual agreement states that the payment will be made to Hynella, I believe, the 3rd week of each month. And we always have the flexibility to not pay them in the subsequent month if we have problems with cleaning services. So to answer your question, yes, we are paying Hynella through the shared services agreement, and we are exploring the opportunity to allocate that payment between Hynella and ABM, but as of today, we are still paying Hynella.
What benefit does Hynella receive for being the middle person for payment of this magnitude, $219,000 a month? Are they floating money? Are they taking their percentage? What's the rationale?
Yeah, all the co-ops receive a very small percentage of what the payment is. So if you deal with MRASC, they may receive 3% commission on any purchases that you make for them. It's a standard procedure. They take a small markup.
Fair enough. As long as council's comfortable and it's within the guidelines of the state statute, I'm thank you.
So, the new custodial firm started effective July 1st. Okay, and so on this bill, this is for the month of July. And what about the month of August?
The month of August will be on the next bill list.
So we'll be paying the month after. So you're saying
We'll
we'll pay the 3rd week
be
of
paying the each month for that month.
For that month.
However, if there's a complaint about any of the schools in the subsequent month, that's when withholding of payment will be made.
No, I understand, so this is the August meeting, and these are August bills.
No, this is on the July.
Don't get
Oh, this is on the July one, and then there's another one on the
I don't think there's one on August, yeah. Okay, so it'll be made in the last one. Last
Mr. Carney, Chris, could you please explain why that a bid for custodial services or for a specific item, why they're allowed to call it joint purchasing items, which, you know, how would you know, how would the company say that did a mark in Old Bridge, how would they know that they could have bid for that? I mean, because there was one respondent. You know, I'm not saying, they did advertise in their paper, which is a weekly paper, which, we have two papers of record, which have a much wider circulation. How happy to look up what the central record of Medford, which is a weekly paper, has a circulation. And when they advertise like this, why they only got one respondent for such a lucrative contract? You know, why are they allowed to do it that way?
They're allowed to do it that way because these are joint purchasing agreements that existed before Old Bridge became affiliated with the Hynella projects. They're joint purchasing agreements that have been previously advertised, previously approved, previously noticed to all bidders. In fact, this additional bid was done at Mr. Mara's request to specify that we are specifically, we meaning Hynella, we are specifically adding another school district, Old Bridge. So there was another opportunity for this work to be bid upon. It was not strictly necessary to do this advertisement.
Right, I understand.
Because as existing joint purchasing agreements, they could have just said, under the terms of their existing specs, which I've reviewed,
Right,
they could have said, yeah, and under paragraph 14, we're adding Old Bridge.
right.
And they could have just said that to their existing service provider.
Right, and that would have been fine if the previous one mentioned custodial services too, but it said joint purchasing, management, and services. And that was the bid that was opened in February.
Yes. And it is a little bit vaguer than maybe you'd like it to be in hindsight right now.
Me personally, I
is-
just don't think it's fair and open.
I mean, than one would like it to be. The analogy is if we went into executive session at the beginning of this meeting, we would do the lengthy resolution listed items. And at the end of the meeting, if we had not finished, because the executive session wasn't as brief as Mr. Capri Licensor did, I could say, we're going back into exec for the items listed before. It is that analogy by which Hynella said, we're looking for bidders on the things we've already advertised. Not as transparent as most of the things that we do here in Oak Ridge.
Or any other cooperative that we use.
I can't speak to that directly.
I think, yeah, it's important. Thank you.
Anyone else? I have a question. There's one of the batches in here has quite a few insurance reimbursements.
Those are for retirees.
Although,
Health insurance.
so then that puts that, are you done with that?
Oh,
or is
wait,
it-
we're not done, that's
No,
ongoing.
that's
Like as long as they.
Okay. And you, and you know that I moved on, you know that I always have questions about the travel. Just so that we don't have 9 different people asking you all the time, you know, I know that they're pretty good. I mean, some of them say that it's child study team, some of them say it's superintendent's office or principal, but there are a lot of people on here that I have no clue who they are as staff members. And I don't understand why they would be getting $352 to travel around the district. So if there's a way in which that we could know at least where they're coming from, whether it's a former maintenance worker or something else, because,
Can you give me an example? Because like plumbers and maintenance workers use our company's vehicles, so they don't get it.
okay, let me find one.
Like a music
Maybe
teacher.
I threw
like
that
a
out
music
just to
teacher
be
might-
vague.
Right.
Maybe I just threw that out to be vague, so I wasn't picking on anybody in particular. Okay, how about this one?
So Rosemary Morrow Horowitz,
Is that this one?
she's a
He's
teacher.
a music teacher. Patrick Murphy's a music teacher at Charlotte Elementary School.
Okay.
What does it say under, like,
Doesn't say anything. It says mileage reimbursement, travel. Well, you know who's the one, so.
Right.
And again, there's some people who have, somebody has $300 and change and somebody has, less money, and that's
so we
very
can look for
difficult
a
for us to see.
way to, like, special services puts the travel, special services superintendent, so like, the music teachers that travel, art teachers, librarians now will be traveling. We can look for a way to identify them, that'd be helpful.
Well, I'll have to send out a memo to the entire district, because they all put their purchase orders in. I can tell what it is by the account number.
Well, maybe is there just a checklist, a check that they can put off? There's nothing.
This comes up on the description.
So then we put like music teacher, salt sampler, something like that, then at least we know
At least we
that travel.
know.
So you can look at 11,240, that's travel expense and principals. So you're saying expand that to say travel expense.
Well, I think that's clear, I think it's the
No,
other one
no,
that aren't.
but it's not clear from the teachers.
So they could be put like, what is the teaching in schools, that would be great. Or if they're guidance counselor.
These typically come up, these typically are done every 6 months. So
And, is there, just, I don't know, is there a maximum on mileage reimbursement for anybody?
yes, it's the contract.
That's for the year.
They can exceed it, but it has to be clear, like you do a 40
So when they put in, because a lot of these, the numbers seem to be the same. So when the purchase order goes in, is there documentation for mileage and everything
Yes.
that goes along with it?
Yes, it's all, everything is attached to the purchase order. Each day that they travel, where they travel from, but it's a lengthy documentation. It's 6 months worth of documentation.
By requirement of New Jersey level D10.
So it states in each item, where they started from, where they ended up, how many miles approximately is using, whatever technology is using to gauge that, the rate that is set by the accountability rate officials, and how much total for that item.
Okay, that was just an idea. All right, we're back to a motion. We have a motion, we're ready for a vote. If there's no more discussion, that's on finance.
For the minutes, we're separating,
So I'll just list you as voting no on that purchase order.
separating PO 50,
We're just voting no
voting no, yeah,
for PO 501647.
yes.
So Porcelli,
Yes.
DePrima,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Hopman,
Yes.
Mongan,
Yes.
Singh,
Yes.
Silikowski.
Yes.
Andriani.
Yes,
Motion is 1 and 2 passed.
thank you. All right, any questions on the rest of finance from 3 to 18?
Number 10,
Okay.
we are receiving the disabilities grant of $2 million. Was that budgeted in? Is this new monies that we were honored with through a
No, it's the same,
process?
it's the same, it's recurring.
It's a
That's the
recurring?
IDA grant, is a recurring grant. It's nothing new.
I have a question on that too. Is the non-public share for the preschool portion, is that correct, $441? It's a small number. We passed over number 3, the budget transfers. I had a question on that. The large amount of accrued sick leave, $500,000, that was available at the end of the year. Was there an additional amount budgeted in this year that was more than the prior year, and fewer retirements that resulted in having that much funds available?
No, the money that was budgeted was very similar to the prior year. However, the number of retirements was significantly less. And we transferred that money up to workers' comp to fund a major portion of the unfunded liability and transfer the money to the workers' comp account.
Okay. And my second question was on, there are two transfers from the energy account. One is for $70,000, one is for $149,000. These are not the first transfers from energy, without going through all the other bill lists, transfer lists. It seems that we either budgeted, did we budgeted more? I believe you said we budgeted less, so have we used that much less energy? And, it was budgeted to, the majority of it to, equipment rental. Is that copiers, or what equipment rental is that?
It's the security system.
That's the security system. And the energy amount that's budgeted in 14-15, I know I asked to go to your office and see the line items, but it's difficult to remember. Was the amount budgeted for energy increased in 14-15, or was it decreased as a result of the fact that we had all this money left this year?
The amount that was budgeted was similar to what it was budgeted in the prior year. However, the prior year was significantly reduced as a result of it being a very warm winter. And so for going forward, we budgeted basically the same. 14-15 as was there for 13.
I just wish that, at least the board could have confidential access to the line items. And I know we discussed it. And I know that we also have on the agenda the board secretary's report, and I thought the attachment was going to be changed as far as the summary expenditure report. I thought it was going to be an expanded report.
Well, I spoke to Mr. Facility, the chairman of the finance committee, and we will be expanding. What I've done is I've distributed the treasurer's and secretary's report as it's been distributed here for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Which is totally insufficient for our board members to have good information.
Right.
What I'm going to do, what Mr. Basili has requested, that we have a finance committee meeting in the next few weeks, where I will actually explain the secretary's report to all board members on all the detailed lines, and that detailed secretary's report will be distributed to all board members when it's approved.
Yeah, so we'll be holding a committee of the whole meeting, all of us, where Joe will go through that and explain the new report.
Right, thank you.
And that'll be coming up.
And I believe I told you that would begin in July. So July.
No, you had given me the May, and I thought you said it was going to start with May, so maybe I misunderstood you, because I have a copy of May.
I said July. We're gonna just defer that for executive session.
Okay.
I have questions on that too, so I'll wait until executive.
Moving on, non-certificated personnel office, number 5.
Just to, just a point of clarification. Deb Frankfurt, you have the top of your head, how long should that last? Should she be going on step 2, or should she be going on staying on step 1?
This is a correction to, that should,
So I have trouble remembering if she completed 1 year in high school.
just one,
Okay,
just one,
all right, then she's frozen there, doesn't go on step 2 until November.
correct. I think initially she was put on step 2, and then this is one that got caught up in the,
So I know we talked about it, just to remember where it started.
yeah.
Okay. That's it.
Anyone else? Operational?
That's also just a correction to the timing of the stipend. The timing of the step.
Non-certificated personnel? Heather?
2 is there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it should be certificate for.
2 should be in certificate of personnel or in curriculum, so probably in curriculum. Item number 2 should move to curriculum. We've had recent resignations in the area of paraprofessionals, so there'll be some adjustments to this next time we see it.
A quick question on paraprofessionals, bus student and lunch student. How are they assigned those extra tidbits? And does any other paraprofessional, could they ask for it, or is it assigned to them, or is it like a stipend for a certain practice? I don't know how each gets assigned, because it's something that is desirable, and I'm sure paras argue among themselves about who's gonna get the extra stipends. Does that work by seniority or performance? How does those?
I'm gonna give you a two-part answer, and I'll let Mr. Tui answer some part of it. I mean, my experience is working in schools where you didn't have enough for it, because of my experience always working in larger schools, where you needed every one of them to have, every one of the paras receive, well, bus duty, because of the needs of the many students coming off the bus at the same time. But the elementary school, maybe Mr. Tui, just talk about how they're deciding on it.
Elementary schools are usually assigned to one student where that student needs help on and off the bus. And or if you are assigned to an LLD class, which is one of the smaller self-contained classes, usually those students need a little bit extra supervision in the morning. And the paraprofessionals in the LLD classes are assigned to those students as well.
So Mike, I think to clarify his question, so if I have more paraprofessionals, then I need escorts. How is it, does it ever happen? And how are they chosen? Are they just based upon principal recommendation, rotation?
It's based upon assignment, and then occasionally, for example, like you give Cooper, for example, there's one special ed para and one basic skills para, but there's 2 special ed students in need of assistance getting in and out of school. One because of a visual issue and one because of a behavioral issue. So they both of those paraprofessionals in Cooper would be assigned based on the needs of the students.
Questions before we move to personnel? Right, at this time, we're at, on page 22, a certificate of personnel. We need a motion for number 1.
Then we'll make a motion.
Hold on, yeah, okay, thank you. As revised, because we had, that's one of the administrative, or that is the administrative correction on the action agenda.
Monty will second.
Okay, Mr. Dunn and Ms. Munger. Is there any discussion?
Yes. What is the purpose of the move?
The purpose of the move was precipitated by a request by one of the staff members that is in effect. And aside of executive session, I would not be able to have that conversation.
I understand. And it's gonna cost the taxpayers an extra $8,000 for this Tyrell move now.
But we do have a principal who is retiring, and the new person coming in is gonna have a lower introduction period, but we need to make sure that we keep our principals.
I know we
Solikowski,
did discuss in executive session.
In the first year of this, you're right, the cost is approximately $8,000.
Right.
In the second and third years, there'll be a red circling because people are changing from guide to guide, and not all guides are created equal. So because of the tenure laws, one of the transfers will not be accompanied by a change in salary, but neither will the 15-16 or 16-17 school year be accompanied by a change of salary for that person, because the salary will stay the same. So you will recoup some of this money as years go by.
That means I'm taking a loan of 2-3 years.
That's one way to put it.
Okay.
Anyone else? No discussion, Mr. Mayor, roll call.
Porcelli?
Yes.
Prima?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes.
Hopman?
Yes.
Longan?
Yes.
Singh?
Yes.
Solakowski?
Yes.
Andriani?
Yes.
Resolution number 1 passes.
Okay, thank you very much. Representative.
I did speak to Mr. Maranzoli today, and he had an obligation to attend to. He wanted to know if he should be here today, so it wasn't necessary for him to be here. Ms. Simon is here. I think everyone knows her, but congratulate her as the new principal at Cross San Luis.
Congratulations.
I know you're going to do so.
Thank you very much. The rest of certificated personnel then is numbers 2 through 27?
We have, we can discuss certain things in executive session, but we can't post it until you prove that she's retired. Shall.
That would have been a difference depending on where you are. You get that. Right, she's not regardless. So that's a wash.
Accomplish what she does, so hard to find.
Shame on that, really. This is what it is. And this one's on this picture?
Yes. She's number 3.
Okay.
That's what.
I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm having a little side discussion with the superintendent about step 9. So I wanted to see it in the contract book. So one of them is in there, the other one I have we have a difference of interpretation. Anyone else in that section, certificated personnel? If not, we'll move on.
Or just in page 26, item number 7, that should say CSMS. Not Jason.
Lori, Jenny,
CSMS, she's at Cross Edward, not Cross. No, she may have had, she could have 29, but she said if anything close to 30, she could have close to 30, they got 45. I'll check on it.
And why these people? Okay. All right, non-certificated personnel transportation, number 5.
Number 1. Was that voluntarily or?
No, she was mistakenly, Alicia Paso was out on, medical leave.
Okay.
And this was an error on our part. This individual never submitted a resignation, just a bad communication.
Fair enough.
Never anything in writing, this is just fixing that.
No.
Supplies, equipment, services.
On item number 2, the agenda next week will say, move the board approve the following change orders to the following projects.
Who would like to fill in?
If it's available. If it's not available, it'll be removed.
All right, that's number 1. That's a change order for that much money?
Yes, if you recall the discussions that we had about the Jonas Salt Roof, where the estimated cost of the project was approximately $700,000, we have an SBA grant for this money. And the proposals the lowest proposal that we received was $420,000. Under the SBA rules, we're allowed to exceed that proposal by 20% or approximately $80,000 to expand the roof work being done on the roof if it's determined that additional roof work needs to be done. So when we talked about the SBA grant and when we talked about the roof project, at that point I spelled out that we would most likely be expanding this project by $80,000, and I thought the board actually did give me the high sign to move forward with that.
I didn't know that it was, I thought it was if needed, I didn't realize
Well,
we were going forward with it.
it is definitely needed.
Okay.
It's definitely
Joe, I've got a
needed.
quick question before I agree to the change order. I happened to be on the roof of Sauk School on Sunday for a different purpose with the fire department. And quite frankly, it's my professional opinion, being in real estate, that they're nowhere close to being done. And we have 3 weeks left. So we find out from Frank and his team to see where they're at with that roof.
We have weekly project meetings. We're actually having a meeting tomorrow. But everybody knows September 2nd is the drop dead date for everything.
They still have piles of insulation that's on that roof that hasn't been put down yet. They still have a lot of.
The problem with all these contracts, the way public schools have to do this, is that we have very little control over how fast the contractor works. And we really have no recourse. For example, if we decided at this point that this contractor or any contractor was not working as fast as they should, it would take us 2 weeks to have them, to notify them that they're not working as fast as they should, and they don't have enough people in the buildings. And then for us to go out and get another contractor to come in and take over for them, it's just, it's not practical.
Logistically, it's a nightmare.
I know it's a nightmare.
I agree.
We're fighting with, we're dealing with every contractor on every single project to be sure that this is all done in the next 3 weeks.
Now, what happens if he is not done, because we can't do roofing on a building when school's in session, so would it happen on the weekends? Is
No,
there a contingency?
every contract that we have specifically stipulates that if the work is not done, number one, there could be, if it's demonstratable that there are liquidated damages, we will be eligible for liquidated damages, but it has to be, you have to be able to demonstrate that there were liquidated damages or financial damages. But it specifies in all the specifications that any work that has to be done after school begins will be done after school or on the weekends, at no additional cost to the district.
No, that's fine.
When they say after school ends,
Usually means 4:30, everyone's at 4:30 or so.
okay, so like all sports teams, everybody knows that.
Because the fire official won't allow them to use torches on a building.
Yeah.
So,
classrooms in the back, that may run something again.
thank you, Joe.
So we're monitoring it on
Okay.
a weekly basis.
We didn't work today, and then it worked tomorrow.
Transportation, any discussion on transportation? Miscellaneous?
Under miscellaneous, number 2, I think it's just a typo, it should be 2014. June 2014.
Hearing of residents, we're at the end here. Is there anybody here that would like to speak about anything at all? Any items?
No, you're looking at me.
No?
Look at me.
Just that we can't wait to get back.
Actually, I
Oh, yeah. we did.
No,
Bill does.
Okay. We have one. This is close. Go ahead,
That, no, I did not like to be on camera.
No?
I recently just found out about the decision that Sodexo is now gonna be serving lunch during the half days. And we all know that that's actually taking quite a bit of money out of the pockets of the PTAs. Cause it takes away their, their fundraising. That's definite?
Yes.
Okay. And the principals were supposed to advise their presidents, because I don't think all the presidents know, because
Principals were sent notification at least close to a month ago.
And whose decision was that? Is that something that we were mandated to do? Is that just something that Sodexo was allowed to make that decision when they do that?
That was a decision that was made through my office, Joe's office, based upon the needs of the district and the needs of the students. You know, if you recall, it's all started back when we had all this weather the past winter, and we predicted or notified parents the day before that we would be doing an early dismissal because we knew a huge storm was coming in the afternoon. Then it set off the concern, are you going to be serving lunch? Because in the cases where we have a planned half-day, the PTAs plan to serve lunch. And not a lunch, they serve a snack. So because it's an emergency type situation, now we're at the point where, no, if we say no, because normally on a half-day we don't serve lunch, the students, especially the younger students, would be in there from anywhere from 9 o'clock until 1:30 without a snack or a meal. And so at that time, it was determined that we would be serving a light lunch on that day because of that specific need. And as we explored the options further, it was brought to our attention through parents and school leadership that, you know, there are many different schools and students who have health concerns, food allergies, and so forth. They're not addressed by PTAs bringing in a meal or a snack.
They're always addressed.
I can speak to one of your colleagues that said, no, that does not happen. And
Whatever, I'm
again,
just saying.
and not to the, again, not to the level of my satisfaction, can you tell me that every one of your employees checks the ingredients to say that this item that you're bringing in is not contaminated with sesame seeds, is not contaminated with peanuts, is not contaminated? I don't have, and if they're wrong,
Oh, listen,
and
I
if they're
get
wrong,
that,
I'm not gonna come after a PTA mom and say,
But
you're
there's
wrong,
food in the
this
schools,
kid.
in the main offices, in nurses' offices, in teachers' rooms, that shouldn't be there either, so, you know what I'm saying? But I'm the biggest allergy, you know.
I know, but as a parent, we both are parents of children with food
Right,
allergies.
no,
Are you gonna trust a parent who you don't know,
No, I
bringing a
understand my
snack
own
to say
cooking for my
that
kids.
this food is not
Or I
cross-contaminated?
provided it to the whole grade, that's what I did.
My intent was not to question the decision, my intent was what, you know, budgets, for the PTAs, their budgets are made and were made before they found out about this. So it just would have been nice if they had, you know,
This was also discussed at a food service committee.
well, it wasn't discussed at the
Yes.
President's Council.
Well, it was discussed at the at a committee meeting.
Well,
I don't remember, I was always.
Yeah, I don't recall any.
No, I was at every one of
I
those.
actually heard about it.
If that's the
but-
meeting that Sal runs, then
Yeah.
So, my question is, what is Sodexo going to be serving on those half?
Right,
The same,
same one.
So it's gonna be lunch. And do the children have to eat a lunch that day? So in other words, could there still be the ability for the PTAs to do a snack sale, although it probably wouldn't be as beneficial to them?
I would think, well, if
But-
you're asking me, but I would have to say
I'm just
probably
saying,
not,
so,
because if
you
you're
know.
taking
Yeah,
the
it
food, if
wouldn't
they
be
say food allergies, and if all schools are compliant.
no, you know what, we're not allowed to sell anything on days
So
that
the
they're.
schedules are gonna be changed as well, that on a half day, there's going to be a lunch period?
So
But
it's
that's
also-
instructional time during a half day, so we're gonna get less instructional time on a half day. So, you know, I'm not going to.
is that really true?
I don't know, you know,
If the PTAs are coming in and serving pizza on a half instructional day, are they doing it within the 22 minutes we're gonna do it in? Are they in and out?
Dave, I'm not here to argue with you, ultimately it's your decision, and whatever your decision is, I'm gonna support you 100%. I'm just asking the question, you know, I'm not sure what they serve, the PTAs in the school.
No, I'm not arguing,
My
you're
son
saying,
gets
as a matter of
license,
fact,
I don't know.
you're saying as a matter of fact, you're eliminating instructional time that they're getting if the PTA service.
Because they're in a classroom, there's, yeah, I'm just asking the question, that's all, I'm not here.
Just coming from,
What you say?
an elementary perspective, it is a disruption to serve the snack in the classroom on an early dismissal day. It's not going to be any more intrusive to serve a 25-minute lunch where they're going to go down to the lunchroom, eat their lunch and come back. It will be 25 minutes, that's how much time they have on a regular day. They will still be able to serve the lunch in that 25 minutes and that won't be an issue. They just won't have recess. They'll go down, they'll eat, and they'll go back, and it's in and out and they're done, as opposed to having things at more random times during the day with the PTA sales, because it's not in as much of a controlled time frame necessarily. And you have, I'm sure, a wide variety of what the PTA sell in different schools. I've been in multiple elementary schools, and it ranges from pizza to hot dogs to bagels. And some of those items are more of a disruption and a distraction to the instructional time than others. This creates more of a routine, the schedule is set, the lunch periods stay the same time across the board. They normally eat at 11:22, they're going to eat at 11:22. There may be some anomalies within buildings that have to adjust, but they should be eating basically at the same lunch period without the recess that they normally would, so it's not disrupting their day.
So it'll be an abbreviated lunch session.
But okay, that's true, that, yes, and then the next point I wanted to make is that also takes into effect the needs of the free and reduced lunch students. Without violating their confidentiality of saying I'm a free and reduced lunch student, therefore can the PTA give me a discount on my bagel or my slice of pizza?
Well, there's a lot of positives to what you're saying because of all the issues with allergies and making sure we have a controlled environment so that the children get the food that, they need. And, I think it's a legitimate decision, and again, I just need to find an avenue where the PTAs aren't affected adversely because they did have their budgets pre-planned before this announcement occurred. So I support what you're doing, I think it's the right move, but we also need to protect the interests of the PTAs as well, so.
I have to say, I understand there are a lot of valid points, and the free and reduced students is absolutely one key right there. However, as far as pizza and so on, I do know it varies depending upon the day, right? If it's a half a day before spring break, there might be a spring party or the holiday break in December, it might be another party and they have pizza. But I know for most of ours, at our snack sales, it's been, basically chips and a bottle of water or pretzels or something like that. And it does generate a lot of money for the PTAs. And the PTAs do give a lot back to our schools, which in turn save a lot of money of the taxpayers. Many of our PTAs have contributed a lot of technology to our buildings, document scanners and iPads and whiteboards and so on. So I just think that we're taking out of their pockets where they put back into our schools. So I think there's a big negative effect there.
Just to add to that, I think that we all were under the impression that the PTAs were aware of this, and it was communicated to us during the summer with the principals that they were not aware, and that was definitely a miscommunication that we thought they knew.
And I will say this, and if it wasn't said, we have in our notes that we shared it at the president PTA meeting. They said we didn't. If you're saying we didn't, then we didn't. But we have in our notes that we did share it. So.
And we're not arguing the fact. Obviously you didn't know.
Listen,
we cleaned over.
I will be the first person to admit that sometimes I zone out. If something, and I'm running the meeting, so if somebody said, hey, I said it was cold in here, and did you hear that? I would say, I can't tell you whether I heard it or not. Maybe I heard it, maybe I didn't. But I'm telling you that the firestorm that would have followed that announcement, I wouldn't have missed that. Nobody would have missed that.
And again, we had conversations that I was shocked to find out that you didn't have the information, because I can recall, and Dave and I spoke about it, that I could see myself sitting at the meeting, but clearly you didn't know. But when you talk about the PTA and the funds that are provided, the information that I've also received is that a lot of those fundraisers on those half days, that money is used, and maybe not in all cases, but it's used for the 5th grade committee.
Right, that's a good one.
Well, that's
because
just
and some of the principals said that their PTAs had talked about reducing the amount that was spent at those end of year functions, and maybe that's something that can be considered.
Correct.
And that they were looking for other avenues to raise the additional money. But something that you might consider is you do have many PTAs that pay for the food at the parties before the winter break and before the spring break. So you don't have to pay for that now, and maybe that area in your budget can then be moved over to the 5th grade committee, or somehow move that around, because you won't have those expenses for those two events, which is sometimes purchasing pizza for the entire school.
Right.
So maybe it can
Well, there's a lot of
offset some of the
suggestions
costs.
that we'll throw out to the
You know,
elementary.
we're not beating you guys up.
No, I'm
We're
not,
getting a
I'm not-
million questions,
I'm not
and
questioning the
for me to say
decision,
it is
I
what it
just
is, I
wish
just need to
that,
give them an answer.
before the budget,
When
before
is
the
your,
budget's
then
released.
this way we'll know for future, when is your budget done?
I don't have a budget.
We
Well,
did
I
ours.
have
Every
individual-
elementary school
I think every
does
school
their
does it
budgets
differently.
It's
differently.
We
during
did
the-
ours
it's
right
something
after
during
that,
the summer.
before
So
June was
it
over.
depends.
Some people do them before before their last meeting, so that they don't have to meet in the summer. And as to what Dr. Hoker was saying, it's been my experience that the elementary school, those party lunches are usually paid for with class funds, I'm not talking about 5th grade. 5th grade activities and parties are usually paid out of
Right,
PTA
every
funds.
kid gives.
But
Wow.
like
The last
pizza,
few PTAs that I worked with, they paid it out of the PTA. So,
All
and again,
It
it
was
different
like
every
$10
school.
But it all comes out of the same pot anyway, because,
Right.
because then if you don't have that money from the snack sales, the PTA is gonna have to pull it from their regular budget anyway. So it's
She's saying
essentially.
it's class party money and things like that. You know, again, it.
Listen,
it
individual
varies.
PTAs
Everybody
will figure
does it,
out what
everybody
to
does
do,
it differently.
you know, that's what they'll have to do. I just think the bigger thing, and I just think some, like Jill said, some still don't know. Like, you know, some still didn't know, so I'm guessing it's okay for
Again,
Jill to put the
I
word
just
out.
wanted to make sure it was definite, because once I put the email out, if anybody doesn't already know, I guess.
And again, we apologize, and I apologize as a superintendent, that it wasn't communicated. And I will say, as superintendent, I don't know if I could be any more, at least in the high school and the middle school PTAs, any more of a person who promotes the PTA, you know, from whether they're working in the concession stand or, you know, whatever I can do to assist. But unfortunately, when I make these decisions, it's based upon my concerns for this, protecting the district and the students that go to this district. Because in the event that there is cross-contamination or so forth, and a student goes into anaphylactic, they're not gonna say to you, they're not gonna say, well, the PTA should have known better, don't worry about it, Dave said, you know. They're gonna say, you should have known better than to have this food in the schools, and it's not, and it's unsupervised as to, from a school official, as to how it's being distributed. That being said, I just had a conversation this week with an advocate who called me to discuss why I don't have paraprofessionals on the bus for every child who has an allergy. Because the bus driver is not gonna pull over and give an EpiPen. If that ever comes into the law, where we have to have an aide on a bus for every kid with an allergy, we're gonna blow through the 2% in 1 year faster than you know. Because it's just gonna be the traditional at expense. And we're seeing more and more of that as it becomes more popular or bigger in the districts and the schools of children with food allergies.
I just want to reiterate, I wasn't questioning the decision, I actually kind of, as a parent,
No, we had
agreed
this
almost.
discussion the other day, yeah.
I wanted to make sure it was
We not
definite
have to
before I
worry
put
about
it out
filling
there.
another form out and sending another
And
$6
then,
in.
and the timing of it, and, you know, the notification of the president. Okay, I'm good.
Yes, they did. They
Oh, wait,
said-
I actually, I do have one more thing. I sent over to Central the dates of the, dates of the President's Council meetings, and already there's a conflict, so, actually, while I was sitting here, shot Patty, an email, because she asked me if the time was still 7 o'clock, and I asked her if she could possibly check to see how many more conflicts. It always happens to us, that they come up during the year, but any that are already known, if I could find out, because already, apparently Sandburg's open house, and is Salk on the same day? Salk and Sandburg's open house on the same day? No.
I don't believe so. I think they're separated by a week or so. My recollection.
Because
Parent
Sandburg's
conference
open
is
house
the
is the
open house.
President's Council first meeting.
Sandburg's open house is very early.
High school open house is the 30th. Sandburg open house is the 17th.
Yep.
And there's one, it's either Salk, Sandburg is the 17th and the 18th, and the Salk is 9th and the 10th.
So we'll have a short meeting.
17th is the first meeting.
Get my email?
It is what it is. I did. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. Any other PTA questions? Okay. Moving on to- Moving on to a different subject.
I just have a real quick question, there's a conflict. Does anybody know October 2nd is supposed to be the Pink Out game, is that right? And they're supposed to be doing some kind of 50th anniversary for the class of 1964. I just need, and then on 2 of the online schedules, they're on different dates, and they're not home games, they're away games. I'm just trying to find out exactly what October 2nd, if that's actually taking place, if it's here, if it's someplace else. Because we have, the class of 64 is supposed to be honored at a football game, and there's some conflict as to what is actually happening. So if it's October 2nd, that's great, then I know.
Well, 64, shouldn't they have been on,
It's the football team. No, not yet.
The only thing I
Laura,
can
you wanna chime in?
Not
I
yet.
can chime in a little bit, since the gentleman that's in charge of that, and I think I sent you an email on this. There was an article in the paper about that. It's October 2nd, it's the anniversary of this football team that was very successful, and they're honoring it at the halftime apparently at that game, and that game is October 2nd. And that's either, and I believe it's Pink Out. And then we thought it was a good day. It turned out it was a good day because we have a lot of people that come to Pink Out, so. Or Homecoming. No, it's not Pink Out, it's Homecoming, right?
Well, that's it. There's
It's either Homecoming or Pink Out, and it's on a Thursday,
On every
and a Thursday.
posted schedule and everything, there's conflicting
No.
days and whether
It is
locations and
what?
where it is, so I'm just trying to find out.
Then it's Pink Out. It's one of the two. It was a Pink Out, because we knew there was gonna be a lot of people, and they were gonna be at that game. Okay, yeah, so there's two things going on at the same time, and it is October 2nd. That is the date.
Well, I think there's like 40.
At the game.
Yeah, it's at the game.
It's at the game.
Yeah.
And it's the football team that's being honored.
Okay, because
Winning football.
one of the schedules they have us down in Long Branch, and one of the schedules they have us in Centerville.
It's at home on the 2nd.
Nora, why don't you email me tomorrow and I'll give you an answer.
That's it, thank you.
I can look up the email. From the gentleman.
Okay, anyone else?
They're asking me, I'm like, I don't know.
I can give it to you in a second. Just give me an email. No, I mean, I can give you the email.
Yeah, well, the school paper that we got from the CD.
Yes,
Send it to me. Don't go by Indeed.com.
All right.
Quickly,
figure out what's
custodial changes, so
It's either Pink Out
we
or
have a new
Homecoming.
custodial firm. And the question was raised, that
What?
would affect the
Oh, it
closing
is.
times of
That's
our
that.
buildings. Anyway,
And
the
the
schedules are all over the place. The ones on-
So
I'm
do
not
we
going
know
by
as
that.
of yet,
Going by
is that going to affect
by
the closing of the buildings for
October 2nd.
activities afterwards, such as PTA events or recreational sports teams utilizing the buildings and so on?
No.
It won't, okay.
And to change those times, you have to do it in policy meeting. Because
Okay.
I think the times are set in policy.
But we do have some groups that, push the limit to when that end is ended.
Okay.
So,
Here.
Okay, that's
those
all
ones
I,
That's all I know.
that's all I don't care what other events are going on, it's just that
Thank
the
So there's
October
no,
2nd game
not going
is
to be
listed
a,
in
you
three
know,
different locations.
dead set time that everybody's gotta be at the building at 9 o'clock. I know, like, for instance, PTA events, sometimes they go over. Try not to, but they do. You know, PTA President's Council always runs till pretty late. So those aren't going to be affected.
No, but even like an event, but even like a school event that they're, you know, when they do the Spirit Night or Fun Fest, they just put on the building use form, it's gonna run beyond that time.
Okay. And then one last thing, I guess there was something happened in the parent portal that a lot of schedules for high school and even elementary schools, I know elementary schools as well. Some people were able to go in and see who their teacher was, and then it got shut down. So I know that there's a big kind of ruckus going on around town because some people know their teachers and their schedules and others don't, and so on. Do we know what happened?
From what an email I received from Supervisor of Guidance, Jeff Caulfield, that some students figured out a way to, they were shut down, but some students figured out a way to infiltrate the system by going through a different URL and into the real-time system. No, they weren't changing it, they were just, so they could view.
So there was a backdoor URL that allowed them to get in and see their schedules?
Right, and once they recognize that, real-time shutdown.
And we don't have any concerns that there's any more backdoors from the other, maybe private information? Well, we could ask Parent Portal to.
Parent Portal, but the Parent Portal, the difference is Parent Portal.
Real time, whoever they are, to.
Parent Portal doesn't have private information. You wouldn't be have access to private information through Parent Portal.
I think he meant any other confidential sites. But how, you don't know if somebody's hacking in.
Why not? Why can't they ask their technology department to do a review of the security system?
We don't, you mean it's real time.
Real time, yeah.
Anyone else?
Is there any update on the status of Dawn on the tennis courts?
No, there's still discussions going on, but they are finding how difficult, they are finding out how difficult it is to do anything in school districts on school properties, so they're still talking about it, but it's not. If it were to move forward, it would not begin until September of 2015.
I need a motion to adjourn and then a motion for executive session.
Not in that order.
Not in that order.
You need a motion to close this public meeting and go into executive session, and we'll be going into matters of school security, lease purchase discussions, change orders, negotiations, and personnel transfers.
Then we'll make that motion.
Thank you. Thank you.
Porcelli?
Yes.
DePrima?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes.
Hoffman?
Yes.
Singh? Solakowski?
Yes.
I don't know.
Wait, wait,
Night all.
Good night.